Yes, ma'am. Now we can start.
A very good afternoon. We have with us is Hardik Luthra, one of our alumni from JGLS, B.B.A, LL.B, from JGLS University. Before I say something about Hardik, let's hear from him because I think he will be happy to entail all his story here at JGLS. Over to you, Hardik.
First of all, I'd like to thank ma'am for providing me with this opportunity. This is a great network of building alumni relations amongst current students and students who've already passed out from this great institution. Why I say a great institution, I'll tell you over the course of this meeting. However, I would like to introduce myself. So I graduated from the BBA LLB batch of Jindal, which is actually the first batch of BBA LLB students, which was introduced in the year 2013. So from 2013 to 2018, I think I had the best years of my life, not only learning from my faculty and my colleagues, but also learning from whatever experience this institution provided me. I made a lot of connections, a lot of networking opportunities here, and that is exactly what is helping me. And by agreeing to do this seminar with Jindal, I would also like to provide that opportunity for other peers and for other students who wish to pursue specifically litigation. And I would want them to get an opportunity to be mentored by me or by people who have mentored me. So thank you for this, ma'am. And whatever questions you put to me, I'll be very, very happy to answer that.
Let's address one by one. Your bio looked very interesting to me, Hardik. Although we have shared that with the students in terms of a poster which has gone live on our Insta handle and LinkedIn handle.
Yes.
However, for them and for me to go through, I discovered that you received 2 Dean List Awards. Could you entail some story around it? And how were you and, or, what question really struck me here is that there's student coming from different interest, different capabilities. But
Right.
were you always a star performer, or have you worked your way to get that? Could you address
Yes.
the
I,
mark?
I will,
Yeah.
yes, I get that question. So it's actually a very funny story, and I think it's one of the most life-changing experiences for me. So what happened is I was a very average student in school,
Okay.
but I always had this passion of law because it may be because I must have seen some movies or some shows, but one thing was always me that I was very curious to know things. So now when I entered law school, though I was curious, though I was working hard, this I'm talking about the first semester. So we had this subject law of torts, and the professor was very happy with me. I used to read all the case laws. I used to participate in the classroom discussions, give answers left, right, and center. But to my utter disappointment, what happened is when I wrote my exam, the first mid-sem exam, I failed. And and then I realized ki what am I doing wrong. And then when I realized this, I understood some things about myself, that though I may be very passionate about the subject, I may not be very good at writing it and articulating it and expressing it. So then what happened is I took the help of one of my flatmates. So I was staying in SH1. Most of these Jindal people would know that. So I was staying in SH1, and I had a flatmate who also happened to be my roommate. I asked him that how could you score better than me? But I did all the reading. I even read commentaries before the lectures and before the exam. So because of him, he taught me how to write an exam. So that's where I understood that law is not only about being curious and knowing the answers to those questions. It is also about articulating it and conveying it in a sense where the other person understands it. And this is a gist of litigation as well. You might understand the issue, you might understand the problem, you might understand the facts. But what happens if the other person doesn't understand it? And that's where you, as an advocate, come in and express or convey whatever point you want to.
I completely agree. If drafting is done, 70% of the battle is won.
Yes.
There are no denials to the same. Going forward to your bio, I also discovered that you worked with law firms in Japan, Tokyo. How did that happen? Are you from a law background?
Yes, ma'am. So, though I am from a law background, I would give more credit to my mother for this because my mother happens to be in she's a IFS. So, she is already in the civil services. And by luck or by chance, she was posted in Japan
Oh,
for those particular years when I was in Jindal. So whenever I used to go and meet my mother, I used to tell her, I'm not doing anything here. I really need to intern. So she's like, you're my only child. You stay with me. Let's get you an internship here. So that was a good opportunity for me, which I'm very lucky to have, which not a lot of students have that. Also, Japan being a civil law jurisdiction, there is actually no point to, conventionally, there's no point to intern there because we are a common law jurisdiction. These guys are civil law. So, but what I learned there was the culture, a law firm culture, how a law firm culture should be. In India, we have a very different aspect of what a lawyer should do, what he should not do. But there I learned actually what these professionals who were charging around $2,000 per hour for their opinions, I actually learned how they worked. I actually learned the balance between professional and personal lives, which I'm strongly against the practice in India. That in India, once you join the profession, your seniors expect you to give up your personal life for your professional life, which till a point I agree is necessary, but not till the point where you destroy your health or your relations, family, or friends, whatever it may be. So I got this opportunity through some networking and some connection, but there are people whom I've approached who will also help students as well as people who are just entering the profession with these opportunity. It's just a matter of asking them.
absolutely. So I was coming down to that, understanding you had that privilege. But
Right.
you answered before I could have asked you that any person who did not come from law background, how do they get internship there? And is it worthy of interning there, understanding the difference in, the kind of law that pertains here and that is in Japan or any country abroad?
Right.
Could
So
you?
another instant, yes, ma'am. Yes. So another instance I would like to give you before I answer this question is I also got the opportunity to go to Philadelphia in the US because I was selected for a semester exchange program by Jindal. So now what happened there is why my interest in litigation it worked up so well is because when I went to Temple University in Philadelphia, there I also got to know as to how the US lawyers they prepare their cases, they prepare their briefs, how do they develop those arguments, how do their moot courts. So the moot court in Jindal is almost as good as the moot courts which are there in that university or in any other university there is. So there where I was brought into and I was introduced to the culture there. They also took us to the courts in Philadelphia, especially the criminal courts. And there I would see how the courts, not only in our country, but in civil law jurisdictions and common law jurisdictions, how do they work? You get a sense of the world. You get a sense and an atmosphere of not only when you are in your bubble in India, but according to me, in my opinion, if one gets an opportunity in such jurisdictions, they should go. Why they should go is because you expand your horizons, your thinking also expands. You try to come up with new arguments, new ideas. You get to study subjects like public international law, private international law, which slowly but steadily is being applied in many cases in the Supreme Court and in the High Courts. For example, I'm currently doing a case where the question which the Honorable High Court of Delhi has raised is whether attendance should be mandatory or not for undergraduate and postgraduate students. So now for understanding this issue, the court has gone into the aspect of how international universities work, especially law schools. So now, because I have got that opportunity from Jindal and also some on my own, my thinking is not limited to the jurisdiction only in India or to Delhi or to Haryana. It expands, and it has overcome that bubble, and now I'm able to assist the court more well in these aspects, because there are some judges who will go into such questions and which will help you throughout life. So
Absolutely.
studying anywhere and getting as much experience and opportunity will never go to waste. So that is my
Say
opinion.
that if possible, explore those areas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, this is what they intend or should do at law school. Understanding that you're practicing now,
Yes.
having all degree of experiences from Japan to Philadelphia and whatnot. What made you choose litigation as one of your, pathway to go ahead in your life?
So, ma'am, beginning this question with some of my internships. So, if you look at my bio, I have done internships in almost every kind of field which India has a law firm for or a chamber for. For civil, for commercial, for criminal. I made it a point that in these 5 years, I will take a taste of everything and then come to a conclusion. However, at the back of my mind, I always imagined myself to be standing there arguing before the court. Now, but that did not stop me from realizing that there could be better opportunities for me. There could be somewhere I could earn more, somewhere I could give more time to my parents or to my other relations. So now what happened is when I had to choose litigation, what happened is that I got a clerkship immediately out of law school with Honorable Justice Sikri at that time. He's a former judge of the Supreme Court of India, now retired. There, I was introduced to the advocacy. What exactly is advocacy? Though I had a sense of what will happen in court and what all basics should you cover before you appear in court. But there, Mr. Sikri, he really instilled this in us that this is a profession where you are not limited to a certain subject. You have to go through all of the things. And as I told you earlier, me being very curious, I was very excited about learning as to how different matters deal with different areas of life. It
Right,
goes from personal life, such as marriages and divorces, to commercial transactions, to competition laws, to criminal litigation, and trying to get in the mind of a witness, of an accused. So it covers every area, especially arbitration. So whenever you do an arbitration, you have to get to know the industry of which the dispute has arisen. So let's say the dispute is about, let's say, a Jal board dispute, right, between the state and a private party. You need to know how the Jal board of a state works. You need
right,
to know how that industry works in order to do that arbitration.
right.
So this profession, especially litigation, is all about increasing your knowledge.
Right.
It's never ending. You can never go out of things to
But you
read.
would not deny that litigation do not give you such rewards which law firm at the initial years of your career does.
I strongly agree with that. I'll tell you how. Because now the now coming to the previous question again, my answer would be that, and coming to this question as well, that my answer to that would be, see, you have to choose. You have to choose whether you want to be at the pre-dispute stage or the post-dispute stage. So corporate is a pre-dispute stage. There in the corporate world, what they do is they make contracts, they do
Right,
deals, they do transactions, and
right,
they make their contracts in such a way so that no dispute arises in the future.
right,
But now I wanted to be personally there where the dispute has already arisen, and now it's the last opportunity. So I call myself as the last line of defense. So I always saw myself as that. So whoever wants to choose litigation, first they have to keep in mind whether they want to be at that stage where the disputes have already arisen, because there's a lot of pressure there, or they want to be at that stage which is a pre-dispute stage. And you can, though the I'm not denying that the work there is much more harder than it could ever
yes,
be, but
yes,
then you have to make this distinction. Now coming to this question, ma'am, yes, in India specifically, your retainership fee is very less. So when I started my practice, I remember after my stint with Justice Sikri was over, I joined a law firm, and that law firm only had a small office in Delhi. It was a filing office, but it was one of the best decisions of my life. Though I was only earning 20,000 rupees per month. So, but that was the best decision because at that point of time, I did not want money to be an aspect. I just wanted to learn. So, if you are from such a background where you can afford to not give too much importance to money, and you have the basic necessities in life, I would recommend you to go with a filing office because the things you learn there are from A to Z, from drafting to even printing to filing to getting the objections removed to getting it listed in the court to arguing to briefing seniors and finally getting a judgment and even file an appeal against it if that may be the case. That was my experience, but I had to compromise on the income part of it. So really tell this to all my juniors that if you have these things sorted in life and if these things are not such a problem for you, you should definitely go to an office even if you're not getting paid so much, which at least teaches you things. And there are mentors to teach you there. I had a very good mentor in that office, Mr. Vivek Jain and Mr. Mrinal Bharti, and they really they used to tell me you go and argue. It was my first year as a as a litigating counsel. They used to give me that confidence, you go and argue, don't worry about the outcome. So I am very fortunate that I got so many mentors. So I think yes, there is a very big disparity between going into corporate and litigation, vis-a-vis litigation. But I think that if you have that kind of a zeal and a passion to be there at the post dispute stage, I think you should definitely work in a filing office.
And it takes how many years to come to a monetary satisfaction for a I mean, I understand anybody who would want to get into litigation should have some, that background.
Right.
But generally, for a student's from a student's perspective, this is like how many years of hardship that brings you. Because I think I would not call it hardship. It's about licensing.
Right.
How easy is procurement of work? When does it start flowing, and what is the process to procure work? To put it precise.
So I always, kind of joke about this that whomever, whichever chamber or whichever law firm I've worked with, they have taught me everything except one thing, how to get clients. Now,
Yeah. So,
so that is one thing which nobody will teach you. But I think I have realized a certain way of doing things is wherever you go, make your networks. Whichever
right,
office you are in, whichever chamber you're working in, your mentors, your seniors, whomever you meet, try to network
right,
with them. Try to ask them. No, everybody is willing to help. Most of them are willing to help. And they will, if not today, tomorrow, when you have learned those basics, they will give you work. And it is just like that one case which you will get will multiply into maybe two or five or 10, whatever it may be. It takes time. It's a very time consuming process, but I think the only way to move forward in this practice would be to create, in good faith, create good networks, connections, and just be and mind you, people don't really focus on this, but I think most of my own networks would be my juniors. Those people who have been my interns are now advocates, and now those advocates, they
right,
engage me for their matters, and they still,
right,
they still tell me, sir, whatever may happen, we at least we can trust you. We can trust you with everything, with client handling, that you'll be there for us. You'll be ready when you'll be ready with the brief. You'll be there in court whenever we ask you to. At least we build that trust. I personally brief my seniors, my immediate seniors, in a lot of matters because I have that trust with them. So it's very easy for me to go about that because I make those connections. Uh, Sometimes it comes naturally, sometimes you have to try for it. But whatever little work I have right now is because of those connections. So nobody will teach you in the profession how to get clients, how to, make those networks. You just have to keep on building, and of course, it's a very slow process. And sometimes you may have, many setbacks because people whom you trust may fall off, or they will not treat you well, or they will just leave you in the middle of a matter, or whatever may happen. But if you have these connections which you trust even a little bit, I think you'll go a long way. But yes, now coming to that question, it takes, so according to me, to at least learn the basics, it will at least take you 5 to 6 years to learn the
5 to 6 years.
basics of everything. And by
Right.
everything, I don't only mean, the drafting work and the research work and the briefing work. It also comes to the other side of things, which is
Hardik, I believe you're mute.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, ma'am. I actually lost connection. These chambers, you know how it is. This is all government connections. So I was saying that not only not only learning that craft of researching and drafting, but also the back end of things where you have to handle clients, you have to handle your invoices, you have to handle the office staff, the court staff. You have to coordinate between senior advocates and your clients, because there are some instructions from there, some instructions from here. And then all this coordinating, and or at the back end and the front part of things, you will at least take 5 to 6 years to get a hang of such things.
Right.
Moving forward to, I personally would say that a period of 10 years would be required for you to have a settled practice, which I would call a settled practice, where you don't have to worry about, where the next payment is going to come.
Right.
Because, y- you're not in a position of a hand to mouth kind of a thing.
Right.
You have those savings, you have those, permanent clients, which, there are some clients who stay with you forever. And you tend to build that relationship with your clients as well. So networking not only through your colleagues and peers, but also through your clients, I would suggest that that is one thing which I believe that I have cracked. But let's see, it will I will figure it out in the next 5 years.
Love that. Hardik, you know what, let's keep this session very generic because it's so enticing. And that's something that I noticed about you, which is one trait whoever sees this video should take from here. My intention of making these videos for the students is to understand and to, have that takeaway. What I learned from your video is I asked you a question, and in the middle of it, you gave me a statement which got me stuck, where I asked you another question, but how you
Yes.
kept those thoughts alive and you answered them so beautifully. I think these are all
Mm,
traits of a very good, well read, well informed person. I think this is one of the biggest
mm,
trait that any lawyer, be it whatever profession you intend to choose, one should take away. However,
yeah.
I understand that you chose litigation. Now, do you do any specific practice in litigation? Are you doing criminal, or are you doing civil? And
Yes, ma'am. So I think I was blessed enough to work with Mr. Sidharth Luthra
right.
in these last 2 years, and he is a great mentor. And I think the amount of learnings I've had from him, even if I club all my 5 to 6 years of which where I've worked for other people, I think those were the years, though they were very tough for me, but those were the years where I really learned
Right.
and got introduced to the criminal side of things.
Right.
So because of that, by hook or by crook or by chance, whatever it may be, I fell in love with the criminal aspect of litigation. So I mainly do a lot of matters relating to economic offenses. So
Okay.
offenses would include your money laundering, fraud, cheating, all of these. And why I was quite attracted to this specific side of criminal law would be because not only are you focusing on, witness statements in these, your evidence is not limited to your witnesses or, eye testimonies or oral testimonies. You are also introduced to another aspect of let's say reading evidence, that would be paperwork such as bank transactions, balance sheets, profit and loss statements. And once you start reading those things, you would also be introduced to the world of banking. You would
Right.
also be introduced to the world of how things actually take place
Right.
in the financial sector, which also gave me a push to understand commercial transactions and get into the commercial side of things. So I think, especially in criminal matters which involve economic offenses, it has it is currently picking up, and it has already reached a stage where a lot of practitioners want to practice this, especially in the PMLA courts and EOW and CBI and all those things. But I think a lot of practitioners are also looking forward to a lot of new aspects which they have been introduced, because this is a comparatively newer law. A lot of young people want to enter it because I think those young people have a good sense of how these how equity works, or how these transactions work, or how financial transactions take place, not only through banking networks but also beyond banking networks. So that in a sense gave me a very large aspect to grab on, because I figured out that this will not only help me in my criminal practice but also would help me if someday I get a matter concerning commercial laws. I would not be very new to the whole concept of, how this transaction takes place. And I already know my basics before I do that matter. So I
Right.
think for me, criminal litigation was always, not always, but after working with Mr. Luthra, was always a priority. But also, in addition to that, I'm also a panel counsel for the Delhi University and two more universities. So for that, I think education is one aspect. Education law is one aspect which I don't think a lot of practitioners are in right now, especially higher education. Because see, higher education is one thing, because students are becoming more and more aware these days.
Right.
Students are becoming more aware of their rights, of their obligations, of their duties of the administration.
Right.
So if you may have heard a recent news, I think of NLU Delhi or somewhere NUJS, where they were, students were protesting. So a lot of these protests have started. A lot of these, students have got to know that these are our rights, and we need to take up these rights with the administration. So education law, according to me, would be something which is just coming up. And I would want people to work in education law because first, it's not that corrupt,
Right.
to put it very bluntly. It's not that corrupt. It's a very straightforward practice of this law. And thirdly is that not many people have the knowledge for it. So there are a
Right.
lot more things to be discovered in this. So, and there are a lot of issues which have to be decided by the honorable courts.
Right.
Now, the education law will also deal with service laws. For example, teachers, faculties who work for these institutions, especially government institutions, They either have contracts or they are working on some sanctioned posts. They also are now becoming more and more aware of,
Their own
how
rights.
things should be. So education law is not only limited to students or the faculty. It can expand to the whole institution in itself.
Right.
It
So
it it goes for everyone.
before you tell me a little further,
Yes,
I think we are doing this session for 30 minutes. But what has
yes.
really struck me is that you said you're working as a panel for Delhi University.
That counts.
What kind of
Yes,
cases
yes.
do you address? I mean, although I'm a lawyer, but I have no understanding the same understanding from a first year's perspective. Who would see this video would want to know a little more. What kind of cases do you address in this? What kind of issue comes across?
Yes. So mostly the issues are twofold. First is in relation to students. Second is in relation to the teachers or the administration. So
Right,
now, the first aspect, which is in relation to students, it is
right,
mostly about admissions, detentions, examinations, and upgrading them to the next semester. The issues are mainly confined to all these aspects, especially
right,
because an eminent institution like the Delhi University, it takes over lakhs of students
right.
throughout the year.
Absolutely.
So now they need a system. They have a system. They also need a system where they are safeguarded. They are
Right,
safeguarded from students who may bring up frivolous claims. They also help those students who may need that help, and they provide such help. So mostly these cases are in relation to admission of students. Some students are detained in a previous
right.
semester, those cases. And some cases also relate to let's say elections. So I think currently the DOSU elections are going on, and people really know their rights and they want to come to court, and they
The
want their
trends
rights.
have changed, Hardik. It was never like that before. Five
Yes.
years we see back, were there the similar quantum, similar amounts of cases coming, or it has just evolved?
I think 5 years back also there were cases, but the quantity of those cases have increased because there are a lot more people now who find access to justice a lot more easier than what was before. A lot, earlier people did not even talk about all of this. This wasn't even a conversation between people, especially students, that let's go to court and we will fight for our right.
Right,
But I think nowadays, as I discussed this with you earlier, that people
right.
are becoming more aware of their rights, and I think this is a very good thing. That that's how
Absolutely.
you build, I think that's how you build an institution. That's how you build the country.
Okay.
So I'm very glad that people are doing this these days.
Yes, Hardik, so this video would go, I think we are addressing not only the current student, we're addressing the alums also who watch this.
Yes,
So I remember meeting an alum. He's also practicing, but same concerns, procurement is a task. However, this concept of being on retainership or on panel has
right,
was there earlier also, but now it has become more a regular practice than earlier times. How
right,
easy is to get that for a practicing lawyer? I mean, how do a practicing lawyer get these opportunities? How do
right.
they get on panel?
So I would put this as two aspects. First being a retainership, which is like a contract
Right,
between either a individual attorney
right,
and a company, or a private individual. That is very rare with individual advocates. I'll tell you why. Because
exactly.
companies companies ought to, because companies have a lot of money, they can afford to
Right,
pay those legal fees of these law firms, big law
right,
firms. So the retainership agreements as such
right.
are mostly concerning big corporates, big companies, and big law firms.
Okay,
That's the trend.
okay,
Now coming to people like us, like individual practitioners,
right,
I may not call it that I have a retainership with a particular person or my client,
right.
but
With my
once they
panel,
start coming back to you again,
right.
turns out to be a retainership, though it is not in any written terms.
Yeah, I got that.
So I think this retainership aspect is only on the reputation you build. Once
Clearly,
you are, independently running your own chamber. So I may not put it in those exact terms, but clients may retain me for the services I provide, and if they like those services, it may go a lifetime.
okay,
So I think, but yes, according to me, these trends have changed because people are now not only, they're recognizing that there are a lot more individual advocates who may be more accessible to them,
right,
even companies for that matter. So companies look for advocates who are independent and have their own chambers because
right,
it's easy accessing them. Because if you
absolutely.
want to reach a person, let's say a person who's at the partner level, and that company, let's say, is an MSME or something, and they may not have, they are not paying that kind of money, but they are still a client. That proprietor may not be able to reach the partner, he does not have
There's no quick access.
access to it.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
he
So
has
there's
no
a
access.
hierarchy that he has to reach out
Exactly.
to.
So why would he want to, have a retainership with him?
Is
So
retainership and empanelment two different things, are they?
yes. See, I'll tell you, empanelment is mostly with government companies or
Okay,
government institutions where they have their own panel of advocates who
right,
represent them either in courts or tribunals or, other different forums.
right,
Or retainership is just something where it could also be, you are retained, but there's no case.
right.
There's no
But
case.
you're
You are just retained.
certain,
If we need you, we will
yeah,
contact you.
yeah,
Otherwise, you are on our rolls.
yeah,
This is also done so that, this is done with some of the senior advocates, so that someday, let's say there is a dispute brewing. So it is just that, this senior advocate is on our retainer. So therefore, the other company with which we have a dispute with cannot retain him or her.
right, right.
So, this is a very strategical aspect
Yeah,
also.
but in that retainership, are these lawyer paid on a monthly basis or, for a yearly?
Yes, they are paid. I'm,
When it
I'm not
comes
sure
to
whether they are paid monthly or
empanelment, when it
yes.
comes to empanelment, it's case wise. I mean, as much as been
It
you're
is actually not case wise. It depends from institution to institution, but mostly it is broken down into the number of work you do for them. For
right,
example, let's say in
right,
a case you are drafting. So
right.
drafting would be different.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
you are filing the case.
yeah.
Filing would be different. So yes, it is
Is
on,
it rewarding?
that particular case is broken.
Yeah, is it rewarding?
Sorry?
Is it rewarding?
I think it's very rewarding because you get to appear in court every day and the judges know you by name then.
Yeah,
I think for me personally, I appear in the High Court almost on a daily basis in a number of matters. But
right,
that is not all my private matters, that is mostly panel matters.
right,
Because panel, uh, just like a public prosecutor, when a panel counsel appears every day, they build a reputation and a rapport with the honorable judges. And because you build that reputation,
right,
you tend to be in their eyes and people get to know you better. So that is
right.
also a way of, getting more work
Absolutely.
after, let's say, you leave the panel or whoever comes next to you.
Right.
And also, one major thing which I would like to point out is whenever you get a panel, your expertise in that area increases manyfold.
Absolutely. Because you're doing a
Because
certain kind of
yes,
work
yes, exactly.
with,
You're doing that
yeah,
work almost on a daily basis. So
right.
gain that expertise in that field, be
Absolutely.
it education, be it service law, whatever.
Right, right. On that note, Hardik, I would want to thank you since we are running short of time. But before I say thank you, Hardik, I would want to seek one more time with you because I tell you with the intent that I wanted to host this webinar was very different. But
Right.
I don't know, your knowledge has taken a completely different periphery we are into right now. But I'm sure students would want to know a little more about litigation. But since we have confined the duration to 30 minutes, and I would want to seek some more time of yours someday
I'll be
soon.
happy for that. Yeah.
Let's do one more webinar because I think
Okay.
so I that I keep doing it on regular basis.
Right.
But what